You're listening to People Think About It. Delve into the world of relationships, business, and politics with hosts Lamar Clark, Dorshell Clark, and Dominique Hagler on People Think About It, where thought-provoking discussions abound.
Hey. Welcome back to People Think About It. Today, our conversation, the conversation I'm going to have is basically how do we reconnect ourselves and just as human beings. You know, we deal with this social media, the cell phones, the Instagrams, the Facebooks and things like that. And I think it kind of dehumanizes us to the point that we don't know how to communicate with each other anymore. So how do we get back to the point? And my viewpoint would be that we need to take a break from these technology sometimes. Sometimes it's just like you go to a restaurant and you sit down at the restaurant, and as you begin to scan around at the restaurant, what do you see? You see a table of 4 or 5 people and everybody's on their phone. And if everybody's on their phone, that means they're not connecting. They're just there. So I've seen something, and I read something one time. It was talking about this. It was a group of friends that they go out. And when they go out, what everybody does, everybody sets their phone on the table and stacks their phone. So once they do this, it makes them engage with one another. But the whole key to it, the first person that touches their phone has to pay the whole bill. So whoever wants to pay that bill is welcome to pick up their phone, but you're entitled to pay the whole bill if you pick up that phone, because the real reason of us there is to engage with one another. So I'm just throwing it out there that how do we get back to that point, at home? We have our children, they're engaged into social media. You have these people that paint a false way of living on social media. You really never see anybody post anything bad. Everybody is posting the glory. So how do we get around it? Because to some people that's real, but to some people it's untrue. And I think that people that constantly post this glamorous life, and then, you get to know some of them, and some of them aren't living like that. So you begin to ask yourself, what drives them to do that? And what drives them to do that is because they don't want to feel left out in the world of what everybody else is doing. And that comes to, how do we reconnect? How do we sit down and have conversation? How do we sit down and, just learn to enjoy one another's company? I'm old school, so I came from a place where you had to communicate with people. You didn't have the cell phones. It was so funny. My wife and I was talking to our daughter, and we was telling her about rotary phones. And we was telling her, she said, well, how did you communicate with people? I said, you waited till you got home, you called their number, and if they answered, you talked to them. If you heard the that means the line was busy, and you had to keep calling back until the phone rang so you could talk to them. She was like, that is crazy. So I turned around and said to her, I said, well, the real crazy part about it is how you get on your phone and you dial a number. If you punch the wrong number, you can hit back and then put the right number in. Well, when we were coming up and dealing with rotary phones and things of that nature, when you dialed the number and you could be almost through the number, and if you mess up and dialed the wrong number or half dialed the number, you had to start all over. She thought that was the funniest and the craziest thing in the world. And then, we explained to her about how beepers worked and things of that. So I don't even know how kids today could even survive with technology that we had to come up with, because we live in an era where it's instant gratification. Everybody wants instant gratification. They want it right now. And if we learn the patience, I think that'll help us get through a lot of things too, being patient, because a lot of people are, when you're driving on the street, they're on their phones and stuff like that, but they're impatient. They're not paying attention to the traffic. They're not paying attention to switching lanes or anything like that. And then they come up with this road rage, the road rage. And I think that a lot of the road rage is because people aren't patient. People don't have patience. We don't know what patience really is. And, and then we step into this mental health. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that it is not real, but I mean, it's just like everybody has mental health issues. And I think that's because people don't have survival skills. So they're looking for somebody else to try to tell them how to live life, how to deal with other people. And I think that, when we look at it and look at the way the world is going, and I look at some of the things that I had to deal with in life and some of the things I deal with in life right now, and I just think a lot of times we live in a place where the social media causes a lot of stress and anxiety with people because we're trying to live a life that's not real. It's not to the point that that everybody's vacationing, everybody's got a stack of money, everybody bills are paid, and that's not real life. So when we get back to real life, we have to understand this. That takes communicating with your mate, communicating with your friends, communicating with your co-workers and everything. I mean, people go to work. People go to work and don't even talk to each other. It's just like, if something has to be done, they hand you a piece of paper and move on. You don't even know you be like, why did you hand me this? And that's because they don't communicate. So how do we get back to that point of communication? So I would say that, one of the ways we get back to that point of communicating is to put down the phones, put down the iPads, put down the computers, the laptops, and things of this nature. I would suggest this, that even for myself, I probably need to practice this, is that when you're around your wife, your mates, your friends, your family, and when you call yourself having a social gathering with them, is that everybody puts away the phones. Then I think that when you are in a marriage or a relationship, I think that you need to set a certain amount of time to the side to be able to communicate and really find out what's going on with each other. Because, between you working, her working, coming home and probably dealing with the children, or coming home and dealing with bills, or coming home to clean up and everything, you really don't have that time, or you don't invest that time. So we have to sit back and look at how do we get to that point. And I think that you get to that point of knowing somebody by communicating with them, by knowing what's bothering them. I mean, when you're talking to your mate, you can kind of sense when you have a great line of communication, you can have a great sense of when something is bothering them, when something is good, when they're happy, when they're sad. And I think a lot of times we don't even know when the people we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, we don't know whether they're happy, we don't know whether they're sad, we don't know whether they just need a hug. And we just don't know because we're so tied into social media. And I think that social media, I think technology can be a good thing and can be a bad thing. And I think that we have to have a balance to it. And once we learn that balance to social media, I think that we'll become connected again as human beings, So I just wanted to put that little piece of information out there, and hoping that you guys, that get involved in our show, listen to people, think about it, that you think about some of these things, because like I said, we have a 26-year-old that thought a rotary phone was the craziest thing in the world. She said she wouldn't have survived back in that time, but we all know she would have, when we told her about how beepers work, somebody called you, you just knew a number, you call that number back and try to find out who was calling you. So it's just different things where technology has taken the transition. But even when you think about this, the rotary phone, when you think about the rotary phone, and as I said, you had to dial a number, and you could dial that number 5, 6, 7 times and get the busy sound. And you just went on about your day. But, if you look at the way it is today, if you call somebody's phone, they don't answer, they'll be like, why didn't you answer your phone? It's because we always know that person has that phone attached to their hip. So we want to know why they didn't. It's not about, whether what they were doing, whether they was at work, whether they was having a moment, whether they was dealing with something else or something like that. You just want to know why you didn't answer your phone. And when you get to that point, that's like, you telling the person, well, when I call, you need to answer. So you got to think of things like that. You got to think about the other people's situation, because you don't know their situation. You don't know whether they, at work. You don't know whether they, but it's just a funny thing, because I've had an experience where my wife had an accident, and my phone kept ringing, but it was a strange number, and I didn't know the number, so I wouldn't answer it. Because most of the time we get those strange numbers, and the way it is today in society, you got a lot of these spam calls and stuff like that, so you don't answer it. So I always say, you know what, like during the day, it's okay to call and stuff like that, but, sometimes you have to just wait until you're home, because when you're home, all those things that, whether you got to jot them down or something that run across your mind, well, it gives you that communication, that together time when you at home. Because if you told me everything during the day, there's really nothing that, we have to talk about in the evening or on the weekend or whatever. Because save some of it, and saving some of it helps you connect. It helps you connect, because now I know there's some things going on with you. We can talk about it. There's some things that are going on with me. We can talk about. There's some things that's going on in life, in the world, we can talk about. But if we, if we are always on these phones, we lose compassion for people behind these phones. You see somebody getting hit by a car. The first thing a person do is pull out the phone, go, wow, and they filming it instead of going to that person and helping that person. Or you see something where some gunfire going off. People out there trying to film it instead of realizing what's going on, So you just got to think about how much impact these phones have in your life. And then you have to make the decision whether to put the phone down for a moment. You have to make the decision to, respect the phone and make the phone respect you, So when you step back and look at it, just as a human being, try to connect with another human being. Show us love, show us affection. We had a talk on our show about the 5 love languages. Find out what your person's love language is, and you won't find out being on the phone. So we're just going to ask you sometimes, just take control of these phones, take control of these social media sites. Do what works for you. I'm only making a suggestion. Do what works for you. And we're just going to say, hey, you know what? Just listen to people think about it. We want you to have a great day. You can reach us at peoplethinkaboutit.com. You can go to @peoplethinkaboutit and see us on Instagram. We're on Instagram, Facebook. And we just keep walking, y'all. We post every Wednesday at 8 p.m. So you can listen to a new episode at 8 o'clock every Wednesday. So check us out. Thank you for listening to People Think About It. And we welcome you back every Wednesday at 8 o'clock.
Friends, so you never miss an episode. A new episode drops every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Thank you for listening.